Hello humans, welcome back. For those just joining us, I have painted the entire periodic table of elements as fantasy creatures, and I am sharing that process with you, along with some of the knowledge I gained, as well as random anecdotes and film criticisms and whatever else pops into my head, because that's how we roll. I will soon be publishing the paintings as an oracle deck, like tarot, with the bonus feature that you can use it to learn science. Or it's a chemistry flashcard set you can use for divination. Either way, I'm super excited. The paintings themselves took 18 months. The videos will take rather longer, and I'm learning how to YouTube as I go, so it's already pretty cringy to go back and look at the early ones. I think magnesium is where it all starts to get watchable myself, and I'm always trying to improve. Like and subscribe and engage if you want to reward my efforts. Also, throw $1 at my Patreon if you want exclusive access to the early drafts of the companion book that the Oracle deck will need. And if you want the whole table of characters in poster form, good news! That already exists in my Etsy shop, linked below, as are the individual elements should you have a favorite. So go get you some merch! And meanwhile, let's talk about arsenic. Of all the elements, arsenic is one of the few that everyone already knows about. It's terribly toxic, but somehow people keep finding uses for it, which almost always turn out to have been bad ideas. Even when it's intended to be deadly in rat poisons or herbicides or fungicides, it is ultimately people who suffer because the toxins get into the water table and the air and end up being very bad news for all of us. Whenever its toxicity isn't the selling point, things get even worse. There are green pigments and dyes that are arsenical compounds, and arsenic famously used to be used in cosmetics to lighten the skin and give women that lovely waxy pallor. Shit gets weird when the beauty industry is involved. As far as the table is concerned, it is a pnictogen and a metalloid. It has been used by humans since antiquity and was first isolated more than 1,300 years ago, which technically means I should have painted her as an old woman. That's a facet of the code I've tried to maintain, but I'm not entirely consistent. This is partly because there are several different opinions about which elements were actually known since antiquity, and partly because this image was hammering on my brain, demanding imperiously to be let out. She does have a very imperious face, doesn't she? I was going for a sort of elvish version of Aubrey Plaza. In fact, a deadpan face is pretty common among these pnictogens. Not universal, but common. And yes, she is holding a chicken. Arsenic is used in industrial chicken feed. It makes them gain weight more effectively. Yeah. Speaking of faces, there is a phenomenon I love to look for when watching makers on YouTube, which I call Harpo Face. It's when a normally very animated character, like Alec Steele or Colin Furze or Svetlana at Kamui Cosplay, drops into the zone with whatever they're making and their face goes absolutely blank. It's really fun to observe. And I call it Harpo Face because the first place I saw this happen was in Marx Brothers movies, when Harpo, whose entire character is weird cartoon face chewing scenery guy, he always has a scene where he finds an unattended harp and sits down to play it, and his face stops expressing anything. It's not quite peace, it's not exactly focus, it exists beyond words of description, and it brings me joy every time I see it on anyone. Sometimes I can feel it on my own face in a sort of vague secondary way, because once you're in the zone, you can passively observe many things that you don't usually pay attention to, and the sensation of my face going blank is one I find satisfying. Is that weird? I can't tell if that's weird. Comment below whether you think it's weird or not. One of the details of this piece that I'm proudest of is this dress. It is a trendy Edwardian silhouette with all the requisite ruffles and layers, and it is made up of popular wallpaper patterns, all of which were printed in Paris green, a vivid pigment that could only be achieved using copper arsenic compounds. Historians sometimes argue about how many of the various mysterious illnesses of that time period could be attributed to the wallpaper. The walls would release arsenical gas when the air was damp, and since this was largely a British trend, the air was damp a lot. Next time you read Feet of Clay, watch for how well Sir Terry subtly points us at the hideous green wallpaper in the Patrician's Palace, as well as at The Fog, making the history-savvy reader think we know exactly what's killing Vetinari. Oh, I love the Discworld books. Go read them if you haven't. Start with Weird Sisters if you want Shakespeare satire, or Guards if you want police procedural satire, or Mort if you've always wondered what the Grim Reaper is really like, or The Color of Magic if you just really want to start at the beginning and go from there. That one is a little too Douglas Adams-y for me. But the voice Pratchett writes in changes after the first 5 books or so, which is why I usually recommend starting with Weird Sisters. And for those paying attention, yes, I have brought this series up before, thank you, in silicon. And chlorine. And manganese too. Yes. I mean, when you think about it, I'm showing restraint. That's only 4 videos out of 33 so far. I'm trying not to get too repetitive. Apropos of absolutely nothing, I know this isn't unique to me or anything, but I have strange dreams on a regular basis. Usually I dream in color, but I have had dreams that were in black and white with a single hue, usually red, something like a pair of Keds or a Jeep Grand Cherokee in the rain. I had a dream once with subtitles. I've had tons of flying dreams, and when I eat in a dream, I can taste the food. It's lovely. I struck Joe Pesci with lightning once when I was 13, and I experienced Armageddon when I was 24. The strangest part is that my brain files dream memories the exact same way as daytime memories, so I can only really tell the difference by how strange things were. If I dream of a normal conversation in the kitchen or some such, it's always jarring to find out that no one else remembers it. Likewise, when my waking life gets weird, it takes a special effort not to think I dreamed it. And my sleeping brain loves celebrities. Oh, man. Just the other night, I went out roller skating with Peter Capaldi in a mall. I used to collect dreams about Lord of the Rings cast members. Vin Diesel once told me over coffee that the secret to his success was that he'd cut short his given name. Irving Dieseldorf. None of this is real. None of it happened. But I have the memories regardless. Kind of feels like cheating. Speaking of cheating, I enjoy watching these time lapses once I've done the tedious part of the editing because it looks like my brush magically manifests paint, and I think that's neat. We achieve this by painstakingly trimming out every time I dip my brush, which sounds miserable because it is, but it's also necessary. At the speed of our playback, my arm would be flashing across the screen in a very irritating way. You want to see? Okay, fine. Here. Told you. My way is better, and the paintbrush is magic, and a little tedium is a small price to pay for doing the things I love all at once, namely, learning, painting, filmmaking, and blathering. Oh, I do so love to blather. Did you know that according to the guy who ran the hostel I stayed at when I went to Paris in 2007, the Louvre is actually pronounced Louvre? Because the V is silent, the R is not. But he gave me directions, and I eventually found it, the whole time thinking it's the biggest building in the city. What the fuck is wrong with me? And then I did not know that the glass pyramid was the entrance. Go ahead, laugh. It wasn't a busy day. I had done zero research, and I swear it doesn't look like a door when there's no line. I expected there to be, people queued up. I wandered for ages, looking for a clue. It was March, apparently not heavy tourist season. I even asked some folks. I could hear them speaking English, so I asked, and they were like, "Search us, we're from Michigan." But eventually I discovered the secret, and I went in, and within about 3 minutes was ready to turn in my brush. Forever. How could I have called myself an artist? How could I have known the vast scope and majesty of the talent this world has produced? What sort of naive imbecile was I? Oh, drowning in waves of inferiority. Everything was intimidatingly beautiful, and there was no end to them. So I went to see the Mona Lisa, which is its own mini-story, and I came out of there feeling better. I sat down on a plush bench and I started to draw a marble sculpture I could see in a nearby wall niche. Soon I noticed a boy, about 6 years old, watching me closely. I turned the paper towards him and said, "Do you like it?" And I got a blank look. "No English, okay." After a little while he ran away, but then he came back a minute later and said, "It's very beautiful." Because he'd asked his parents how to compliment me in my language because he liked my drawing so much. I had just finished the sketch, so I tore it out of my sketchbook and signed it and gave it to him. He had single-handedly restored my faith in myself. I wish I could have given him more. He kissed my cheek, and I left the Louvre. What was there to stay for? A third spiritual experience? Mustn't be greedy. You see here that Arsenic is dragging a bag of skulls around as a counterpart to the chicken. Her oracular title is Misdirection because the entire history of Arsenic seems to be an exercise in gaslighting and cognitive dissonance. A lady would put down rat poison and then eat an arsenic wafer for her complexion. Industry would soak lumber in it, then make playground equipment from that lumber because its toxicity made it long-lasting. If careful with the dosing, it can act as a stimulant, so they used to dope racehorses with it. That didn't always end well. Conventionally raised chickens still get it in their feed, which will surely not turn out to be a terrible idea. Like the other heavy metals, arsenic is being used to treat cancer, which is interesting. Perhaps we have found the thing it can do for us that doesn't kill us at the same time. Or does it? Even so, a sack of skulls will follow wherever arsenic goes. I hadn't pre-planned where the symbol would go, so we're backing up a bit and putting it on her cuff. Still very swoopy. I like that look. I like this dress. I love the skulls. I even think the streaky background is pretty, and you may have noticed that we didn't really need to wrestle or fight with this one. She may be toxic and dangerous, but she's a lovely artist subject. Always good to celebrate when something comes easy. And by the way, I would shit rainbows of happiness if I saw this as a costume on a live human. I really would. Thank you for watching. It means the world to me. Let me know if you like what I'm doing or if you want me to change it up. We're 33 down and 85 to go, so I can afford to experiment. Until next time, avoid toxic things. Put on your Harpo Face. Find out beforehand where the entrance is. And stay healthy. Oh my god, the fairies have been fucking with me so hard. I don't know what I did or if they're just waking up for spring or what, but I was reading Cotillion the other day and I'd just gotten to the point where, like, Freddie was talking to the Chevalier about stealing his woman away, right? Yes. I put the book down and it vanished for 3 days. I looked everywhere in this house it could be, especially, like, scouring the area where I had last seen it, and half an hour ago I glanced at that spot again and it was laying there. Yep. It is. The fairies are doing this purring thing. I was bitching about it to the woman at the Sprouts who was... She worked there. She was trying to help me find puff pastry in the freezer section and it was just not to be found, and she was like, I'm certain we have it, I just don't see it. And I was like, you know what, don't worry about it, you know, it's probably the fairies took it. And she gave me this startled look and she was like, the fairies have been messing with me so much lately, I didn't know I wasn't the only one.